I believe there's something quite wrong with women's mental health. Or I could bluntly put it like this: almost all young women, both individual or as a collective, are, and I'm sorry to say so, mentally insane. Whether it is pouring bleach over men's crotches, hitting men, female teachers raping young boys.
Tonight, shocking allegations against another teacher at a local school, a music teacher charged with having an inappropriate relationship with a student. And that teacher replaced another music teacher 2 years ago who also allegedly had a relationship with a student.
Police were alerted to a possible romantic relationship between then choir director Olivia Orts and a 17-year-old student by the high school principal in April.
Falsely accusing and reporting men, destroying men's careers. Women seem to be revealing their true identity and are showing us what it really is that's been driving the men crazy.
It's a crazy scene outside a bar. The time, 1 a.m. The place, Daytona Beach.
Hey, quit filming my baby.
Watch as a woman wearing a thong bikini is seen on surveillance tape holding a baby and taking a swing at a woman recording her on a cell phone. Her friend, also in a skimpy bikini, steps in front and attempts to block the crowd. So, what triggered the argument? Police say the witness was trying to videotape a truly disturbing incident in which the two women dressed in thong bikinis were seen tossing a baby like a football. One woman was reportedly seen holding the baby upside down by the ankle. It happened outside the Coyote Ugly bar.
If I would ask you, like, what's keeping you from showing me your face, what would your answer be?
It's basically we're here to make God happy, and that's my sole purpose, that's my main purpose. And if by keeping myself from not being seen by strange men, it's going to keep God happy.
اصلا به تو ربطی نداره. به تو ربطی نداره. یه بار دیگه هم اینجا یک بار دیگه اینجا ببین خودت میگی. شما خجالت بکشید که کار مردم دخالت میکنه.
I think the world is on mad. Maybe I'm the crazy one.
Religion is one of the most effective methods of mind control and social engineering. One of its main purposes is to create a conditioned and therefore inauthentic woman. This video is basically about the inauthentic woman, which unfortunately is most women, as I'll explain in this video. Basically, all major religions have oppressed and suppressed women throughout history, and the point of this suppression is to control their minds, enhance their perception and behavior. Even Buddhists used to believe that women had to be reincarnated as men for them to be able to become enlightened. Nobody ever wonders why it is that basically all religions have suppressed feminine energy, especially in the form of women throughout history.
I'm for equality of the sexes, and I'm pointing out that probably the most patriarchal, sexist institution in the world is organized religion. So I'm opposed to sexism.
For millennia, the great theologians and prophets of our religions have set to work on the riddle of womanhood. And the result in various times and places has been widow burning and honor killing and genital mutilation, a cultic obsession with virginity, just other forms of physical and psychological abuse so kaleidoscopic in variety as to scarcely admit of being summarized. But there's no question that religion promulgates and renders sacrosanct attitudes toward women that would be unseemly in a brachiating ape. Now, while man was made in the image of God, woman was made in the image of man, according to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Her humanity, therefore, is derivative. It's ersatz. The Old Testament values the life of a woman at 1/2 to 2/3 that of a man. The Quran says that the testimony of two women is required to offset the testimony of one man. And every woman is deserving of one half her brother's share of inheritance. But the biblical God has made it perfectly clear that women are expected to live in absolute subjugation to their fathers until the moment they are pressed into connubial service to their husbands. And the New Testament offers no relief. I mean, St. Paul put it in his letter to the Ephesians, "Wives, be subject to your husbands as to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church. As the church is subject to Christ, so let wives be subject to their husbands in all things." The Quran delivers the same message, and on most translations says that disobedient wives should be whipped or scourged or beaten.
I do have an objection, or at least feel that women should think about their belief in a patriarchal male deity and the idea that men in the church can tell women what to do because God is male, and that the Pope has to always be male because Jesus was male. We're dealing with a real sexist institution. Yeah. If you go back to the Bible, women are called whores throughout the Bible. They're termed as dangerous people or apt to turn people away from religion. There are even passages in the Bible of the Lord ordering women to be ripped into pieces because they're whores.
The 11th century sage Al-Ghazali, perhaps the most influential Muslim since Muhammad, described a woman's duties this way: "She should stay at home and get on with her spinning. She should not go out often. She must not be well informed, nor must she be communicative with her neighbors, and only visit them when absolutely necessary. She should take care of her husband and respect him in his presence and in his absence, and seek to satisfy him in everything. She must not leave the house without his permission, and if given his permission, she must leave surreptitiously. She should put on old clothes and take the deserted streets and alleys, avoid markets, make sure that a stranger does not hear her voice or recognize her. She must not speak to a friend of her husband's even in need. Her sole worry should be her virtue, her home as well as her prayers and her fast. If a friend of her husband calls when the latter is absent, she must not open the door nor reply to him in order to safeguard her and her husband's honor. She should accept what her husband gives her as sufficient sexual needs at any moment. She should be clean and ready to satisfy her husband's sexual needs at any moment." Now recall the blissful lives of women in Afghanistan under the Taliban, or think about the millions of women who even now are forced to wear the veil under Islam, or who are forced into these forced marriages with men they have never met. And you will realize that these kinds of religious opinions have consequences. The net effect of religion, especially in the Abrahamic tradition, has been to demonize female sexuality and portray women as morally and intellectually inferior to men. I mean, every woman, it is imagined, holds the honor of the men in her lives for ransom and is liable to tarnish it with a glance or destroy it outright through sexual indiscretion. In this context, rape is actually a crime that one man commits against another man. The woman is only shame's vehicle, and often culpably acquiescent, being all blandishments and guile and winking treachery.
In Iran, where I've been to all three axes of evil countries, by the way, I think I'm the only writer who can say that. You're not allowed to sentence a woman who is a virgin to death, even though she may have committed, in the eyes of the mullahs, a capital crime, perhaps by showing her hair too often or her limbs. She can't be sentenced to death. But religious law means she can be raped by the Revolutionary Guards and she's not a virgin anymore. And then they can kill her. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law used to be considered the motto of Satanism, as I recall. Divine permission given to people who think they have God on their side enables actions that a morally normal unbeliever would not contemplate.
In the Old Testament, in Deuteronomy 22, God says that if a woman doesn't scream loudly enough while being raped, she should be stoned to death as an accessory to her own defilement.
It's obvious that the alpha male god of this book reflects the fears, the ignorance, the territorialism, the arrogance of the patriarchal Israelites who wanted to preserve their property, including their wives and their slaves. The God they invented is an abusive husband who controls his wife, the Israelites, with threats and with violence. It's in the Bible. God is a misogynist. Look at Jeremiah 13, for example. When the Israelites were asking, why are the Babylonians invading and killing and raping their women? God replied, here's why. It's for the greatness of your iniquity that your skirts are lifted up and you are raped or violated, some verses say. Because you have forgotten me and trusted in lies, I myself will lift up your skirts over your face. God, by his own words, is a rapist. Literally or metaphorically, this is really a horrible thing to say. Isaiah wrote, the Lord will afflict with scabs the heads of the daughters of Zion, and the Lord will lay bare their secret parts. This is sexual harassment in the Bible in order to humiliate and control women. What do you think about men who boast about groping women? What do you think about that? Is that praiseworthy? God is definitely not pro-life. Because she has rebelled against her God, their little ones shall be dashed in pieces and their pregnant women ripped open, God said. May the Lord cause you to become a curse among your people when he makes your wombs miscarry. God is cannibalistic. I will make your oppressors eat their own flesh. They will be drunk on their own blood. If you disobey me, you shall eat the flesh of your sons, and you shall eat the flesh of your daughters.
There's no escaping the view in the Bible and the Quran that women have been put on earth to serve men, to keep their homes in order, and to be incubators of sons. So I think this is a fact that really cannot be disputed. If we ever achieve a global civilization that truly values and honors the rights and capabilities of women, it will not be because we paid more attention to our holy books.
You see, religion manages to enslave people psychologically, and in the case of women, it does so while also stroking their egos. This makes it so that they are not able to see that they are participating in their own enslavement by believing in it.
If I would ask you, like, what's keeping you from showing me your face, what would your answer be?
It's basically we're here to make God happy, and that's my sole purpose, that's my main purpose. And if by keeping myself from not being seen by strange men, it's going to keep God happy.
But suppose we're neighbors for like already 10, 15 years, would I then be permitted to see your face?
If we're married, yes, of course. But otherwise, no, because I feel like there's no need. I mean, I'd show it to the women.
Like,
yeah, of course.
are you married?
I would. Actually, I was.
You were?
Yeah, and it was kind of a love marriage as well, and...
Don't go into too much detail.
It was basically, he was not my type.
So you got divorced?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm glad I did. I'm just, you learn from your mistakes. I'm the kind of person who has to make the mistakes first. So, yeah. I've got to go back to work.
Okay.
I came to pick up a burger or something right now, so...
I was going to present my hand.
Well,
I used to. Now I just don't. Like before, when somebody used to give me the hand, it just seemed really impolite not to. But then, as I've grown, I just felt like if you don't want to shake somebody's hand, you don't have to. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's it.
Christians can agree that Islam is pretty messed up and has a low opinion of women, and yet both religions basically see women in similar ways. For example, the Quran says,
"Men are the managers of the affairs of women because Allah has made one superior to the other."
And the Bible says,
"The husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church."
The Bible is more subtle about it, and it uses the word head because most people won't think about it deeply. The head thinks, uses reason, logic, and makes decisions. So instead of saying, "Let men think for you and make decisions for you" to women, it says, "Men are the head." It sounds nicer and more civilized, but it's basically saying what the Quran says. But Christian women are blind, so they can't see it. In fact, they don't want to see it. Many women defend their religion to their grave, and yet it's clear that the man who created all major religions didn't have a high opinion of women. The brainwashing is so deep that even in places like Afghanistan, where the women are both physical and psychological slaves, many still believe their religion is the truth. Muhammad married a 6-year-old girl.
No, we don't think there's any problem with it at all. We think that it's just because we have a different idea of what it means to be a child, which can be tracked historically. But now, if the situation has changed, we'd say that the general principle in Islam is, you know, you can do what you kind of want, so long as, I'm not going to say you can do what you want so long as you're harming. You can marry whomever you want to marry, so long as it doesn't cause them harm, physical and psychological. So, for example, if I marry a 100-year-old woman, or Sneeko, if you marry with your tank top a 100-year-old woman, and you get involved with her intimately, she might die. I mean, she might have some kind of health problem. So we would say that, well, if you were to be intimate with a 14-year-old or 13-year-old who's got huge hips and huge breasts and huge body, I mean, quite frankly, we would say it's not going to have the same effect medically. I mean, no one can make the argument. But in these countries where we live in now, one is legal and one is illegal. So, in other words, you can't marry a 100-year-old woman, but you can marry that girl that's you can't be. You're a pedophile if you go for the girl that's got the hips. And once again, pedophilia is very relative.
And I've seen Muslim women defend this by saying we can't judge Allah's actions. Christians say similar things when you point out all the messed up things God did in the Old Testament and even in the New Testament for that matter. They say you can't judge God's actions from a human perspective, same thing that Muslims say. Then when you point out that the Bible was written by man and isn't the literal word of God, they quote Bible verses to prove why it's the word of God. How stupid is that? It's so ridiculous, but they can't see how brainwashed they are because religions are basically just cults. I mean, just try talking to somebody in a cult and telling them that they're in a cult. They will not hear what you're saying, not because it's not true, but because they're in a cult and they're brainwashed. Islam is great in the sense that it's a very clear example of how insane religion is. Words can't actually describe how much of a sickness it is, but all religions are a sickness. The other purpose of religion is to suppress the feminine principle through the form of women, which naturally also affects men, because men also have feminine energy, just like women have masculine energy. And what religion does is mind control men into suppressing their own feminine energy, and also mind controlling women into suppressing their own masculine energy. And therefore both men and women look for those energies outside of themselves. We're supposed to balance both energies within ourselves, therefore creating a new man and a new woman.
This part of the brain, the neocortex, the higher brain, the human brain, needs to be balanced. That is ultimately what should be our ultimate goal in life, is to bring those two hemispheres, the masculine solar left brain hemisphere and the feminine lunar right brain hemisphere, into a state of harmony and balance, so that it opens the third eye, the human pineal gland, and it balances the brain. And I've displayed the symbols of the chalice coming together to form the blazing star, or the all-seeing eye, to represent that concept.
The powers that be understand this, and they know that they can't control people if they are balanced within themselves.
Hidden knowledge controls the world, and that is what the dark occult are using against us as a weapon. What is this hidden knowledge? Ultimately, it is knowledge about nothing else at the deepest core fundamental level but the knowledge of who we are, our consciousness and how it works. And these are the three modalities of consciousness. It has been called mind, body, spirit, but it is indeed our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions. That is the true Holy Trinity of consciousness, and it is all about us. That is the knowledge that they have occulted from sight.
Ironically, the same religions that have said men must provide for women and protect them and lead them, which appeals to the inauthentic woman, are the same religions that have oppressed, killed, and tortured women throughout history. Many religious women and inauthentic women in general seem to want to be protected and provided for more than children do. Children rarely talk about wanting to be protected, and yet, according to the FBI, basically every minute a child goes missing. And this has been going on probably for as long as religion has been around, and yet it's rarely ever talked about. If you think about it though, it makes sense that religions that have oppressed women also want them to be weak and dependent on men and the system. It's a more sophisticated and civilized way of enslaving people. Christianity is so against intelligent women who can see through the religious nonsense that the first ever female philosopher and astronomer was killed by Christians for being a pagan. I have a hard time believing that many Christian, Muslim, and Jewish women have even read 10% of their religious books. If they have and still end up believing in that nonsense, it means they lack intelligence. The unfortunate thing is, this is such a tricky subject to talk about, so the few people who can see what's going on don't talk about it. But Esther Villa wrote a book about a similar topic called The Manipulated Man, and after she wrote it, she received death threats from both men and women because of what she wrote. In the book, she basically describes and examines the female ego, and I say a big reason for it is religious brainwashing that has gone on for thousands of years. In The Manipulated Man, Esther Villa wrote,
"Any qualities in a man that a woman finds useful, she calls masculine. All others of no use to her, she calls effeminate."
Men have also internalized this mentality so much so that religious and traditional men think that their purpose on earth is to work and provide for women. Esther Villa also writes,
"No matter what a particular man does or how he spends his day, he has one thing in common with all other men. He spends it in a degrading manner, and he himself does not gain by it. It is not his own livelihood that matters. He would have to struggle far less for that, since luxuries do not mean anything to him anyway. It is the fact that he does it for others that makes him so tremendously proud. No matter what a man's job may be, bookkeeper, doctor, bus driver, or managing director, every moment of his life will be spent as a cog in a huge and pitiless system. A system designed to exploit him to the utmost, to his dying day."
Religion conditions women to look to men to provide, protect, and lead them. And it conditions men to look to Jesus to protect and lead them because Christ is supposed to be the man's head and the man is supposed to be the woman's head. And apparently no Christian woman has enough intelligence to ask, why is it that Christ can't be her head and can only be the man's head? But of course, the inauthentic woman doesn't really mind being told to obey and be led by somebody else because she knows that the leader, the man, must also provide for her and protect her and do all these things for her, which she prefers because she's under mind control. She would much rather follow somebody else than find her own way. And if a man leads, then she's not responsible for what happens, and this appeals to her. Esther Villa appears to have made the same observation when she wrote,
"The sort of independence men have means nothing to women, because women don't feel dependent. They're not even embarrassed at the intellectual superiority of men, because they have no ambition in that direction. I know that quote will offend many women, but they wouldn't be okay with being led by men if they didn't think that they were intellectually superior. Nobody follows someone who they think is less intelligent than them."
Their main concern is being provided for and being led, they being inauthentic women, which are unfortunately the vast majority of women because of how effective this form of mind control is.
Let's look at some of these programming tactics that are used against women. This is one I think just about everybody can see very openly because it's so blatant and will agree with. It's called princess programming. That they start very early. They have to start with very, very, very young women when they're children. The inauthentic woman has been socially engineered from a very young age to want to be placated, revered, and pampered. Princess programming is huge in Western culture and starts at a very early age. Through this programming, young women are often taught, here's the list of things they're taught to do and to be like: to value only what can be gained for themselves through relationships with men, to seek only men who can quote-unquote provide for them or quote-unquote take care of them, to quote marry well, to marry into money, etc. To place paramount importance on their own physical appearance to quote lure a male, to devalue the importance of their own intelligence, to seek money as their main value system, and even to think that, quote unquote, no man is good enough for them. You'd be surprised how many people teach this kind of a value system to their daughters. It is going on continually in our society. Very powerful form of mind control, that parents are actually propagating unknowingly. And they're doing it through the mass media and movies that project these values right into the subconscious mind of children as well.
Interestingly, while religion enslaves women psychologically, it also enslaves men, but in a more subtle way. For example, many men feel like they don't have a purpose if they're not getting validation from some woman by providing for her and leading her and being her head. It sounds strange, but it's actually pretty common. Esther Villa also writes,
"A man who changes his way of life, or rather his profession, for life and profession are synonymous to him, is considered unreliable. If he does it more than once, he becomes a social outcast and remains alone. The fear of being rejected by society must be considerable. Why else will a doctor, who as a child liked to observe tadpoles in jam jars, spend his life opening up nauseating growths, examining and pronouncing on human excretions? Why else does he busy himself night and day with people of such repulsiveness that everyone else is driven away? No, one can hardly assume men do all this for pleasure and without feeling a desire for change. They do it because they have been manipulated into doing it. Their whole life is nothing but a series of conditioned reflexes, a series of animal acts. A man who is no longer able to perform these acts, whose earning capacity is lessened, is considered a failure. He stands to lose everything: wife, family, home, his whole purpose in life, all the things, in fact, which give him security. Of course, one might say that a man who has lost his capacity for earning money is automatically freed from his burden and should be glad about this happy ending. But freedom is the last thing he wants. He functions, as we shall see, according to the principle of pleasure in non-freedom. To be sentenced to lifelong freedom is a worse fate than lifelong slavery. To put it another way, a man is always searching for someone or something to enslave him, for only as a slave does he feel secure, and as a rule, his choice falls on a woman.
You see, one of the reasons for religion basically saying women shouldn't use their own intelligence and just be led by men and be provided for by them is to make women's intelligence atrophy, which means it doesn't grow or develop very much. So women end up being dependent on men for basic survival, and men end up depending on women for a purpose and fulfillment. In a chapter of The Manipulated Man called What is Woman, Esther Villa writes,
"At birth, men and women have the same intellectual potential. There is no primary difference in intelligence between the sexes. It is also a fact that potential left to stagnate will atrophy. Women do not use their mental capacity. They deliberately let it disintegrate. Why do women not make use of their intellectual potential? For the simple reason that they do not need to. It is not essential for their survival. By the age of 12 at the latest, most women have decided to become or, to put it another way, they have planned a future for themselves which consists of choosing a man and letting him do all the work. In return for his support, they are prepared to let him make use of their at certain given intervals. The minute a woman has made this decision, she ceases to develop her mind. She may, of course, go on to obtain various degrees and diplomas. These increase her market value in the eyes of men, for men believe that a woman who can recite things by heart must also know and understand them. But any real possibility of communication between the sexes ceases at this point. Their paths are divided forever.
This is another purpose of religion, to separate the masculine and the feminine, therefore making them unbalanced. You see, the people who control the world are basically Satanists. It may sound crazy, but it's actually true. And these are the same bloodlines that gave us religion. So they understand that Satan isn't a person, but a symbolic metaphor for an inverted state of consciousness, which is why Satanism inverts the cross and the five-pointed star.
The pentagram, okay, it represents the 5 elements: earth, air, water, fire, and spirit, with the 5th point, the 5th element, spirit, raised to the most significant position, meaning that it needs to be in ultimately superiorship above all of the other elements of nature. That is the cosmic source from which we all come. And you can see it has Stargate symbolism there on it, which we're going to talk about. The ancients would often depict the pentagram with a man or a woman with its head at the top representing spirit, and then its extremities at the other 4 points representing the other elements. And this is a pentagram in its proper aspect and in balance, representing a person who understands their divine nature. This is the satanic pentagram, and this is the official sigil of the Church of Satan.
Religion is not what it appears to be, folks. It's a mask. It's a mask on a demonic face. And people better start waking up to that fact and realizing it. These religions are not on the side of humanity. They were created by these cults of the ancient world, and they are run by dark occultists to keep people inactive and believing that some savior is coming to rescue us from ourselves.
And then you come to religion. A lot of people express their spirituality through religion, good luck to them. But at the inner sanctum level, they are all expressions of this force, ultimately. Because it wants people to have a belief system that is rigid and unmoving, because then they got you in the program. And you look at the symbol of Christianity, it's a frickin' human sacrifice. That's what it is. And you look at things like the Eucharist, it's Satanism light. Instead of literally eating the body and drinking the blood, they eat the biscuit. He's got a biscuit there. And drink the wine. It's just Satanism light in a way that's acceptable in the public arena. And, you know, if you're going to worship a biscuit, do it properly. That's what I say. Get some sponsorship. Get some sponsorship. Don't mess about. Do it right. And what is religion? It is a tiny band of possibility which people will not step out of because it's breaking the bounds of the religion. It's a program. And look, where did religion come from? The major religions. They came out of the same place the new psyche came from in the period after the new psyche, the birthplace of religion. They came out of the Middle East and Near East, where the new psyche came out of and went around the world. And when I talk there about randomness, pseudo-randomness, religion is pseudo-randomness. It's the same program hidden behind different names, labels and rituals. Okay, what are you? Oh, I'm a Muslim. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, what it means is that I go to the mosque and this man in a gown tells me what God wants and what I have to do to please God. Okay, gotcha. You? Oh, I'm Jewish. What does that mean? Well, I go to the synagogue and this man in a gown tells me what God wants and what I have to do to please God. You? Christian. Okay, what do you do? I go to church. And this man, often in a gown, tells me what God wants me to do to please God and go to heaven. It's a program. It's the same program. They just give them different names and it's all the same. They're all pissing in the same pot. At the core, there's a lot of people, not in Satanism, but in religion, who are genuine people and nice people expressing themselves through the religion. I'm talking about the controlling force. And so, you look at all these different parts of human society that are pushing us in this direction to the Hunger Games society I've been describing, and ultimately they're controlled by that, because that's the spider I talked about earlier.
Religion is also an inversion of the truth. People think that religion was created to unite people and to give them a way to connect with God, which is a joke. Its real purpose is to imbalance people and make them worship this inverted state of consciousness while thinking it's God. This is actually what's going on, and it's why the world is the way it is. I mean, just think about it. For thousands of years, Religious people have been praying to God and telling him how great he is. And what has been the result of that? Like I said earlier, for thousands of years, children have been going missing on a daily basis. And yet people have been telling God how great he is. So how is it that he does nothing to protect these children? Because it's not actually God they're worshipping, it's something else. Also, why would a good God punish his children for eternity just because they ate an apple, like the Bible says? To believe that just because two people ate an apple once thousands of years ago means you're a bad sinner is ridiculous. And to believe that another being should be your head just because a book said so is even more ridiculous.
World religions may differ on many issues, but one thing they have in common is how they view women. Translated into English, a version of the Devi Bhagavad Puran says, "A woman is the embodiment of rashness and a mine of vices." And quotes like the Manusmriti assert that women have no knowledge of religion because they have no right to know the Vedas. In Christianity, the story of Eve prodding Adam to taste the forbidden fruit and then triggering the fall of mankind is used by many to associate women with evil and temptation. Most interpretations of the Bible view the pain of childbirth as a divine punishment for the sinful nature of a woman. And almost all religions view menstruation as impure and use that as a justification to exclude women from religious spaces and services.
Why specifically target women? Here's the main reasons that eugenicists and social engineers specifically have crafted these forms of mind control to target women in particular. Since women possess the capability of influencing men, and that is true, most men will adjust their attitudes and behaviors to conform to women's likes and preferences. And the people sitting in this room here today know that that statement is true. And most people out there in the listening audience on the internet will recognize that statement as being valid. Therefore, if the ruling class can influence the minds of most women, the men and children of a society will ultimately follow. And folks, every totalitarian regime has known that truth and has adapted those principles to its twisted advantage. Additionally, women ultimately control, at a biological level, the human procreation process by way of their control over the selection of males with whom they choose to reproduce. Taking both of these factors into consideration, it is women who ultimately decide which traits and characteristics will be passed down to future generations of humanity. Now, that's not taking epi-eugenics into account, but just genetically. Now, then you add all the epigenetic stuff, and if you have women under that epigenetic form of mind control, the manipulation of their consciousness, you're going to absolutely influence the characteristics that are going to be expressed at an epigenetic level as well. My question to everyone here in the listening audience today is, are your quote-unquote likes truly your own? A very uncomfortable question to ask. What qualities do you find attractive in another person? Is it possible that such likes and preferences could be implanted into your belief system? It might surprise and even disturb most people to think that such aspects of their personality may not actually be their own. Most people don't even truly know why they find certain things attractive and others not. The same can be said for both men and women. Is all such attraction just a natural instinctual dynamic? Or can a great portion of that kind of attraction be attributed to cultural programming? And I would suggest most certainly it is the latter. There's a lot of cultural programming and engineering that goes into manipulating people's perceptions of what they find attractive or not. Edward Bernays, one of the leading social engineers of the last century, absolute Satanist, involved in the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations, Chatham House, Wellington House, involved with Walter Lippmann, another huge eugenicist, radically transformed for the worse modern Western society, this mind controller and eugenicist. He said this: the conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism this occulted mechanism of society, constitute an invisible government, in other words, a ruling class, which is the true ruling power of our country. We are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested, largely by men we have never heard of. This is a logical result of the way in which our democratic society is organized. And folks, he's not talking about the American so-called democratic society. He's talking about that's a logical progression of the way that the sick, twisted, social engineer, control freak ruling class is organized. And they're putting their religion into practice, which is eugenics. The inauthentic woman, this is very critical to keep in mind. This is what I'm talking about when I refer to women throughout this presentation. The inauthentic woman, or the socially engineered woman, is being, above all else, culturally conditioned to no longer be attracted to any of the qualities of an authentic man. Let me repeat that. The inauthentic woman is being conditioned in this eugenics mind control agenda to not be attracted to the qualities of what I refer to in this presentation as a genuine man, an awake man. That's the spiritual alpha, as I'm going to refer to it later in the presentation. Such qualities of the genuine man include high holistic intelligence, not just intellect, true confidence and high self-esteem, being very vocally opinionated, having very masculine features and an overall masculine look, independence, a rebellious attitude toward authority, and placing very high value on individual freedom. However, of course, such traits are seen as highly dangerous to the goals of the ruling class, who wish especially to see society produce weakened men, since weakened, emasculated men, quote unquote men, are very unlikely to resist the state, while strong, independent thinking men are more likely to resist the control of the state. That's why they want to breed these qualities out of the human male. And that's why they want women specifically not to find those qualities attractive in a potential partner. When I say the authentic or the inauthentic man or woman, what am I talking about? So I've made this real simple breakdown chart of what I consider the authentic being versus the inauthentic being. All of the things that are listed in red are what I consider the inauthentic human, or what we can consider the beta class of humanity, which is the bulk of humanity. The bulk of humanity fits into those red squares, okay? Then there's the true alpha class of human beings, of male and female, okay? This is what I call the spiritually awake, the spiritual alpha female, the spiritual alpha male. So let's look at some of the qualities of these types of men and women. The beta female, and again, I put female in quotes here. It's not the genuine female. They are conditioned to submit to the dominator type so-called alpha males. Again, alpha is in quotes and male is in quotes, because they're not the alpha and they're not true men. And we'll look at their characteristics, okay, in a moment. The alpha female is conditioned to desire either the dominator type alpha male or to control the submissive beta male who wants to be controlled by them. The beta male is conditioned to submit to the dominator type alpha female. The alpha male, so-called alpha male, okay, the non-genuine or inauthentic male, is conditioned to either desire the dominator type alpha female or to control the submissive beta female. Okay, so you see that the alpha male can basically cross over with the alpha female or the beta female. The alpha female can cross over with the beta male or the alpha male. All inauthentic types of human beings, because they're all under mind control. And what is the next commonality? what are they all playing a game of? Control. Either to be controlled or to control someone else. They're in that mindset where they desire to be controlled or they desire to be in control of someone else. That's the quality that makes someone inherently inauthentic. The genuine woman or the spiritual alpha female, the true female, the true alpha female, is free of social engineering conditioning and does not play that control game, as does the genuine man or the spiritual alpha male. They're free of that social conditioning, and they don't play the game of either wanting to control someone else or wanting to be controlled by someone else.
While on one hand, religion and men in general have historically oppressed women, today, however, it's clear that women don't feel oppressed by men, at least in the West. In her book, The Manipulated Man, Esther Villa wrote,
If women really felt oppressed by men, they would have developed hate and fear for them, as the oppressed always do. But women do not fear men, much less hate them. If they really felt humiliated by men's mental superiority, they would have used every means in their power to change the situation. If women really felt unfree, surely, at such a favorable time in their history, they would have broken free of their oppressors. In Switzerland, one of the most highly developed countries of the world, where until recently women were not allowed to vote, in a certain canton, it is reported the majority of women were against introducing the vote for women. The Swiss men were shattered, for they saw in this unworthy attitude yet another proof of centuries of male oppression. How very wrong they were. Women feel anything but oppressed by men. On the contrary, one of the many depressing truths about the relationship between the sexes is simply that man hardly exists in a woman's world. Man is not even powerful enough to revolt against. Woman's dependence on him is only material, of a physical nature, something like a tourist's dependence on an airline, a cafe proprietor's on his espresso machine, a car's on gasoline, or a television set's on electric current. Such dependencies hardly involve agonizing.
So while religion has conditioned women to be dependent on men, their dependence is just material. It's only about being provided for and having resources, which is all about survival.
The primary motivational factor that women are taught to desire through this social engineering is security. This is the psychological dynamic that they are taught to crave from the minute they are out of the womb, practically, by the ruling class. The inauthentic woman is largely motivated by the psychological desire for attachment and security. To them, again, the inauthentic, socially engineered woman, love is seen as primarily as a form of permanence and attachment, rather than a deep familial bond with another human being. Money and government are often perceived by them as assurances of comfort, prosperity, and long-term security. Again, this is a fear response. This is a fear tactic of manipulation based on scarcity mind control, scarcity-based mind control. The primary desire for financial security as a resource for safety can be most readily seen in our culture in the most frequently asked question by a woman to a man when first meeting, which is, what do you do for a living? I have now, independently as a social experiment, asked 107 people this question. 107 people have answered the question the same way. I asked, what is the first question after initial pleasantries are exchanged that inevitably, invariably, a woman in our society will ask a man during their first encounter when they're first meeting? 107 out of 107 human beings immediately, like that, spit back the answer, what do you do for a living? Ladies and gentlemen, if I stood on the street corner outside this hotel tomorrow morning and asked 107 people, on a cloudless, sunny day in an area of the sky where the sun is not shining, just if you look in the sky, what color does it refract? They would not answer blue. 107 people would not give the answer blue to that question. And I'm serious. You cannot get social agreement on a question, on any question, that perfectly aligned on any topic. But that one you can. Why is that? It has nothing to do with mind control. Don't worry about it. Ultimately, the desire for security is the desire for an illusion. There is no such thing as security, ladies and gentlemen. Doesn't exist now, never has existed, is never going to exist. A comet could be on the way to hit this planet in the next couple of days, and our ass would be grass. And there wouldn't be a damn thing anybody would be able to do about it. You think you're secure on a planet, a physical planet, in a solar system going around a star? There's no security here. A cataclysm could happen any day. Ask people in, Southeastern Asia how secure they feel when an earthquake could hit the middle of the Pacific or the Indian Ocean at any time and create a massive tsunami. There's no security on this planet. There's no safety here. If you're expecting safety and living for safety and living for security, you're already under mind control. You're already living in a dynamic of fear. As long as you live in a physical reality, there is danger, and it has to be embraced and accepted. You cannot live life in fear. The search for security in a man with money, or the desire to be simply, quote, taken care of by someone else, is an integral part of the ego gratification, me, satanic mindset. Very few want to see and admit the truth regarding this. Most will attribute this to Darwinian theory biological response, this desire for security in a male. Trying to find the most fittest to propagate the genes to the next level. This is the whole social Darwinism and physical Darwinism argument. When in fact, this behavior is deeply ingrained social conditioning. Sadly, most people desire a state of safe and secure slavery as opposed to one of dangerous freedom and its associated personal responsibility. I'm not interested in safety, folks. I'm interested in freedom. I'm interested in my natural rights as a sovereign being. Most men are also in this manipulated mindset, unfortunately. The realization that death lurks around every corner is the state of reality that the authentic man and the authentic woman live in at all times. And they embrace that. They know that no one knows when it's their time. You don't live your life thinking about that. You live your life focused on what you want to do and trying to do the right thing and trying to build yourself up and help to build others up. If you live like that, you're living an authentic life. The mind control program attempts to get the inauthentic woman to equate money with genuine value, to have money as the principal basis of their value system. The inauthentic woman is socially engineered to perceive money as the primary value system in human life. This general mindset postulates that something is only worth doing if money is being made by doing it. In reality, nothing could be further from truth. This is one of the primary reasons that art, music, poetry, and especially philosophy are so drastically de-emphasized in modern society and even frowned upon by many people as something that you choose to do only if you, quote unquote, want to starve. How many people take that mindset? They think the only value in anything is if money can be acquired by doing it. This leads to the concept in neo-feminism known as hypergamy, which means marrying well or marrying up. Marrying the man with the most resources, the biggest bank account, the most comfortable lifestyle. When the inauthentic woman meets a man for the first time, the first and foremost question that she asks is, what do you do for a living? Why is it not, do you know the difference between right and wrong behavior? Can anybody answer that question? I'd like an answer to it personally. That should be the first question a human being asks to another person they're meeting for the first time. Do you know the difference between right and wrong? That's what I'm concerned about. That's what I want to make sure you have a deep, full, fundamental grasp of when I'm building a relationship with you. I'm not interested in what you do to make fake-ass Federal Reserve notes that aren't worth the paper they're printed on. No, man, I have friends, I don't know what they do for a job. I honestly have friends, I don't know what they do for a job. And I don't care, and I don't even need to ask them that question. As long as they're not doing something completely immoral that's coercive toward other people's rights, I don't care. Hypergamy, or marrying upward, is a learned behavior, a socially engineered behavior that is entirely about the search for security in a man with a high monetary income. You know, some of these images here could be a little incendiary or inflammatory. Hey, so be it. This is going on out there in society. The image to the left, to the bottom left, says, if we're going to date, I need to know your credit score, how much money you have in the bank, and if you're vaccinated. Meanwhile, notice this guy is a complete psychopath with a big knife behind his back. You know, she's not interested in, you know, whether he's a good guy. She wants to know all this other stuff about his, you know, his finance. The one on the bottom right says, this guy wins $181 million in the lottery on Wednesday and then finds the love of his life just 2 days later. Talk about luck. You know, I mean, get as offended as you like, folks. Stuff like that goes on all the time in our society. All the time. Here's a video that kind of describes what hypergamy is. I got a kick out of this one, but I'll tell you what, it's more prevalent, it's more out there than anyone would be comfortable believing. Let's watch this.
Hey, what's up?
Hi.
You're pretty cute. Want to hang out sometime?
No, I don't think so.
I mean, I'm just new here, so I just want to see if you know, we can chill, hang out, something.
I have a boyfriend.
You do?
Yeah.
I mean, we can just be friends, you know, it doesn't have to go.
It's kind of serious. I don't think it's a good idea.
Nothing?
I don't give my number out to people I don't know, sorry.
You sure?
Yeah.
All right, well.
Bye.
We got $1 million deal going on Thursday. We can't screw this up. Trust me. Yeah, no, it's a simple. About 48 million we're looking at. All right, let me call you back. All right, bye. Hi, how's it going?
Hi, good.
Are you sitting here alone?
Yeah, I am.
Mind if I join you?
Yeah, go ahead.
You don't have a boyfriend or anything by any chance, do you?
No.
What do you got going on later on tonight?
I'm not doing anything. What are you up to?
Nothing. I don't have any plans tonight. I was wondering maybe you wanted to get a drink.
Yeah, that sounds like fun.
Awesome. Yeah, why don't we... Oh, actually, I'm here meeting up with my boss.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm here to give him his car.
You can wash my car?
Here you go, boss. I'll wash your car.
You get my jacket?
Got your jacket in the car.
Do you have my jacket?
All right. Would you like me to clean this? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Why?
I don't know. Crazy.
Why does that matter?
Oh, it doesn't matter.
So you still want to grab a drink, or? Oh, you have a boyfriend.
Oh, it's not that serious, so I thought it might be a good idea. I mean, we could get to know each other.
Wait, so do you have a boyfriend or you don't?
No, it's not that serious.
I guess we could hang out maybe like 10, 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, you want to...
But I hate liars and gold diggers. Too bad.
You know, I mean, this legitimately does go on. I wish it weren't so. You know, I wish a lot of what I'm talking about here in this presentation weren't so. I don't want it to be this way, you know? When I talk about this with people, even in my personal life, it's like, they don't even respond with hatred to what's going on. They respond with disappointment. That's really the dynamic that I feel. That's the energy that I feel when I think about this type of stuff. Because I realize what the true potential could be for our species versus what we're really doing and the kind of values that we're really holding.
I believe there's something quite wrong with women's mental health. Or I could bluntly put it like this: almost all young women, both individual or as a collective, are, and I'm sorry to say so, mentally insane. It doesn't mean that they're not intelligent. On the contrary, women can work with male inventions, take over male jobs, drive their cars, fly planes, and anything else that men came up with. However, whenever women themselves come up with something, they always seem to create the exact opposite of the goal they want to achieve. Mostly by screaming, yelling, aggression,
physically remove the students,
and portraying themselves as ill-treated victims. Especially the younger generation, who just don't seem to realize they're now openly demonstrating this female erratic behavior by the bizarre way they protest and march through the streets as the fourth wave of feminists. It's typically female to achieve equality, and once they have it, continue to whine about trivial things, blowing them up to disproportional problems like the way men sit, or how men explain things, or how they open the door, or don't open the door for them, or how men approach them, how they operate the air conditioning.
It's the air conditioning that's sexist. I know. So many women in our office have the exact same problem.
Trivial as it may be, this is now starting to have a huge impact everywhere and turning today's society into a world gone completely mad. It's as if all the whining within a marriage, which in the past was acted out within the confines of their private homes, has gone public now, and so have their methods. Whether it is pouring bleach over men's crotches, hitting men, female teachers raping young boys, falsely accusing and reporting men, destroying men's careers, women seem to be revealing their true identity and are showing us what it really is that's been driving the men crazy. They are dragging many men with them into a global folio of both sexes, and this strange disorder is growing explosively the last years. When women are alone with their thoughts, they seem to express themselves as children. You can see this on social media forums such as Facebook. They seem to lack the capacity to think up original thoughts or ideas. This is why they mostly communicate using clichés and favor the use of memes or poetry, usually written by someone else, to express their feelings. Just look around on the internet and you'll see that everybody, including men, are cultivating this toddler-like kindergarten style. Women have largely contributed to this childish PC society where everything is offensive. Just think about which of the sexes always tended to be offended. It weren't the men. Men have this innate interest to explore, examine and build worlds. Women just don't have that. Their innate interest is to explore, examine themselves and build fat around it to develop yet another disorder. You cannot co-govern a world when your interest primarily consists of who slept with whom and gossiping about it. Because whichever way you twist it, this is the main interest of women. It's shopping, shoes, sex and slander. Women for sure won't want to exchange their sexual embellishment and their lipstick for coal mining clothes and a lamp. They rather would see men's masculinity being stripped and outlawed while cheering the transgenders and the rest of the alphabet of gender-neutral people. Because these physically and mentally castrated men can be welcomed into this equality-demanding group of women. As long as they don't participate in sports or enter their safe spaces. Female-only safe spaces. No men allowed. The seat of the equivalent of the whites-only benches in South Africa's apartheid era. That's not equality though. It's actually the exact opposite of gender equality. That's a weird kind of confused female supremacy and eradicating of all that's masculine. What do those young women do in their university safe spaces? They finger paint, for one thing, and this is frighteningly underlining the kindergarten-like state of mind of these women. One should expect them to read Nietzsche or Confucius or Plato, but these are all men. Women are mentally insane, and right now they are dragging the entire Western civilization, men included, into this unbelievable farce which is rapidly evolving into a plain, sick and disturbed society.
In the final chapter of her book, The Manipulated Man, Esther Villa wrote that,
"Man has been manipulated by woman to the point where he cannot live without her, and therefore will do anything she asks of him. He fights for his life, and calls it love. There are even men who will threaten their idolized female with suicide unless she accepts him. Not that this is much of a risk for them, they have nothing to lose. Woman, nevertheless, is incapable of living without a man. Like a queen bee, she cannot survive on her own. She, too, is fighting for her life, and she, too, calls it love. They each need one another, in fact, and it seems therefore that they share at least one sentiment. The cause, nature, and consequences of this sentiment, however, differ as much as do the sexes. To a woman, love means power. To a man, enslavement. Love provides woman with an excuse for financial exploitation, man with an emotionally charged excuse. For the sake of love, woman will do things that are of advantage only to herself, while man does only those things that will harm him. When a woman marries, she gives up her career for the sake of love. When a man marries, he will have to work for two for the sake of love. For both sexes, love is a fight for survival. But the one survives only by being victorious, the other only by being defeated. It is a paradox that women can also make their greatest gains during moments of utter passivity, and that the word love endows them with a halo of selflessness, even at the moment of their most pitiless deception of man. As a result of love, man is able to hide his cowardly self-deception behind a smokescreen of sentiment. He is able to make himself believe that his senseless enslavement to woman and her hostages is more than an act of honor. It has a higher purpose. He is entirely happy in his role as a slave, and has arrived at the goal he has so long desired. Since woman gains nothing but one advantage after another from the situation as it stands today, things will never change. The system forces her to be corrupt, but no one is going to worry about that. Since one can expect nothing from a woman but love, it will remain the currency for any need she might have. Man, her slave, will continue to use his energies only according to his conditioning, and never to his own advantage. He will achieve greater goals, and the more he achieves, the farther women will become alienated from him. The more he tries to ingratiate himself with her, the more demanding she will become. The more he desires her, the less she finds him desirable. Only woman can break the vicious circle of man's manipulation and exploitation, but she will not do it. There is absolutely no compelling reason why she should. It is useless to appeal to her feelings, for she is callous and knows no pity. And so the world will go on, sinking deeper and deeper into this morass of kitsch, barbarism, and inanity called femininity. And man, that wonderful dreamer, will never awaken from his dream.
This is all part of the satanic mindset. The satanic mindset plays a major role in the psychology of neo-feminism. Many neo-feminists openly claim that they identify with the ideology of Satanism. The first tenet of the satanic ideology is the dictum that, quote, self-preservation is the highest law. Put in other words, the survival and comfort of the physical self is always a more important goal than doing what is morally right. Live only for yourself and care only about you and yours. If you must step on others to get what you want, then so be it, for this is a dog-eat-dog world. Ladies and gentlemen, above all else, that's what Satanism is. Above all else, that's what Satanism is. And most people have no idea that not only is that what Satanism is, but that they're in that mindset, that they are living as a Satanist. The ideologies that clearly define the overarching worldview of Satanism is perpetual me thinking, ego gratification, hedonism, and always wanting to be in control of other people. Would you agree that the vast majority of the individuals in our society subscribe to such a satanic worldview? I know I would. You know, I call their worldview mini-me Satanism. You know, you could look at the real dark occultists who know this openly as Dr. Evil, who are sitting on the Iron Throne or desire to sit on the Iron Throne. But the population is mini-me, who are molded to be like them and to want power over other people in the same respect that the real controllers of our planet want and desire power at all times and places. The dominator or doormat syndrome. What has now become attractive to the socially conditioned, the socially engineered woman, is the inauthentic alpha male who acts as the dominator or the controller, okay, the dominator, or the inauthentic beta male who is the doormat or who seeks to be controlled, what many people in the MGTOW movement refer to as the mangina. The inauthentic woman now desires the corporate cosmo man, the metrosexual, the androgynous hipster, the inauthentic man of every kind. Men also fall for this programming through TV, movies, mainstream media, magazines, and popular music, and seek to become what the conditioned woman is attracted to, i.e. the dominator or the doormat. Again, playing the game of control, either wanting to be controlled by someone else or wanting to control someone else.
So you see, while religion has been used to oppress women historically, men have also become enslaved in the process, and now women, in the West at least, actually have the upper hand over men, regardless of how it seems on the surface. Men use religion to console themselves by thinking that they're stronger than women and therefore are their leaders and their heads, like the Bible says. And since most women have no interest in even leading themselves and being their own heads, they don't even feel insulted by being told that another person is their head. All they've been conditioned to want is a provider and security, and they're willing to let their own intelligence atrophy just to get men to do things for them. This is why religious women don't rebel against or question religions that have oppressed them for hundreds, if not thousands of years.
I think the world is gone mad. Maybe I'm the crazy one. Maybe I'm the crazy one. It seems the world has gone mad. They tell me I'm the crazy one. Maybe they're right.